Order in the court? No! This wasn't order. This was disrespect. This was humiliation. This was a white police officer mocking a black judge in front of the entire room and thinking he could get away with it. But in seconds, his world turned upside down. This isn't just a courtroom story. This is a story about dignity, about arrogance, about justice striking back harder than anyone expected. And before we dive deep into this tale that will shake you to your core, I want you to hit that subscribe button right now, turn on all notifications, and drop your country in the comments below. Because this isn't just entertainment, this is a movement, and you need to be part of it. Stay locked in, because what this judge did will leave you stunned, and you'll want to come back for more stories just like this. Judge Marcus Ellison sat on the bench, his black robe draped across his shoulders like a shield forged from decades of battles both seen and unseen. To the world, he was a man of the law, calm, collected, deliberate. But beneath that robe was a story most people in that courtroom could never understand. He was a black man who had walked through fire his entire life to stand here. Born into a neighborhood where poverty screamed louder than opportunity, raised in a world where people told him he was less than, Marcus had turned every wound into wisdom, every slight into strength. He had carried the weight of doubt, racism, and humiliation for years, yet he had risen above it all. And now, here he was. The authority in this courtroom, the embodiment of justice, seated on the highest chair, staring down at a man who believed his badge made him untouchable. That man was Officer Daniel Mercer, a uniformed enforcer who had built a reputation not for honor, but for arrogance. For years, whispers followed him: brutality, misconduct, intimidation. But his badge had always protected him like armor, until now. The case before the court was clear: abuse of power, reckless actions that endangered lives, and a trail of complaints that had finally caught up with him. And yet, instead of fear, Mercer carried himself with swagger. He leaned back in his chair, smirk tugging at his lips, eyes darting to the judge as though mocking the very idea that a black man could sit higher than him. The courtroom was tense. Lawyers adjusted their papers nervously. Jurors shifted in their seats. The gallery, filled with members of the community, sat silent, waiting, watching. They knew this wasn't just a trial of a police officer. This was something bigger. It was a test of dignity, a clash between arrogance and integrity. And then it happened. Mercer scoffed loudly as Judge Ellison read through the proceedings. He rolled his eyes dramatically, exaggeratedly, like a child mocking a teacher. And then, in a moment that shocked everyone, he mimicked the judge's voice, a crude, sarcastic imitation dripping with disrespect. The room froze. Mouths opened in disbelief. Whispers surged like an incoming tide. A white officer mocking a black judge in open court? It was an insult not just to Ellison, but to every inch of progress, every mile of struggle that had been fought for dignity in spaces like this. The gavel slammed down, echoing like thunder. Judge Ellison's face was stone, but behind his calm exterior was a fire that had been lit long ago. He had been mocked before. He had been underestimated before. But never like this, never here, never in the seat of justice. The story deepens here, not with dialogue, but with the weight of memory. As Ellison steadied himself, the narration carries us back into his past. A young law student walking into his first lecture, hearing the whispers, "He won't make it." A young attorney standing in a courtroom where no one believed his arguments until he crushed them with facts. A man applying for judgeship and being told the public wasn't ready for someone like him. Every insult, every slight, every obstacle had been bricks in the wall of resilience he carried today. And now, a police officer dared to mock him in front of everyone, as though his authority meant nothing. The tension built. Cameras hidden in the gallery recorded. Every heartbeat in that room was heavy. The jurors, once hesitant, now looked on with new eyes. They saw not just the arrogance of Mercer, but the composure, the dignity, the controlled power of Judge Ellison. This was no ordinary man. This was no ordinary moment. Evidence rolled out. Video footage of Mercer roughing up suspects unnecessarily. Reports of racial profiling. Testimonies from people too afraid to speak until now. The walls of arrogance around Mercer began to crack. His smirk wavered. Sweat gathered at his temples. The badge that once shielded him was now the very weight dragging him down. And then, in the final moments, Judge Ellison delivered his decision. Not with anger, not with vengeance, but with precision and power. His words, though calm, carried the weight of centuries of silenced voices, the authority of the law, and the dignity of a man who refused to be broken. Mercer's face fell. The regret in his eyes was unmistakable. The man who mocked now trembled. The man who sneered now sat in silence. His career, his reputation, his freedom, all slipping away. In seconds, the man who thought himself untouchable realized he had mocked the wrong one. The courtroom erupted, not in chaos, but in a collective recognition of justice done. And Judge Ellison, steady and unwavering, reminded everyone watching that respect is not optional, dignity is not negotiable, and arrogance will always crumble before truth. And so the story closes on one undeniable lesson. Mockery may bring a laugh for a moment, but justice lasts forever. And as this video ends, I want you to remember, stories like this aren't just tales. They're reminders of the battles fought every day for dignity, respect, and equality. So don't just watch and scroll away. Smash that subscribe button right now, hit the like button, and drop your country in the comments so we know where you're watching from. Because here, we bring you stories that expose arrogance, uplift truth, and remind the world that justice always wins. Stay tuned for the next story, because if you thought this shook you, what's coming next will leave you breathless.